Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something truly incredible, the world inside your head. And I'm not just talking about a lump of gray matter. No, it's more like a living, breathing symphony of activity. And we're going to take a peek at the sheet music. All right, let's kick things off with a question. It seems so simple on the surface, but the answer is just, well, it's fascinating. So, think about this for a second. You see a familiar face, maybe a friend across the street, and in less than a second, bam, recognition, emotion, memories, it all just floods your mind. How on earth does your brain do that? So, to get to the bottom of that, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll talk about the main idea, that your brain has many parts. Then, we'll see how that works in real life. After that, we'll look at the highways connecting everything. We'll even explore what your brain does when you're doing absolutely nothing, which is pretty wild. And finally, we'll connect all the dots. Okay, so section 1. To even start to answer that question about seeing a face, we have to get our heads around a really fundamental idea in neuroscience today. The old way of thinking, that there's one little spot in the brain for memory and another for vision, well, that idea is kind of getting thrown out the window. Instead, we've got this concept called distributed representation. It's a fancy term, but the idea is simple. Think of it this way. Your thoughts and memories aren't like a single file stored in one folder on a computer. No, they're spread out all over the hard drive. It's not about one single spot. It's a massive team effort, a coordinated light show happening all across your brain at once. Okay, so that's the theory, but what does it actually look like in practice? Let's dive into some real-world examples that you've probably experienced 1,000 times without ever thinking about the incredible complexity happening behind the scenes. So let's circle back to our original question, seeing that familiar face. It feels like one simple thing, right? Oh, there's Sarah. But it's not. It's a full-on explosion of activity happening all at once. One part of your brain, the fusiform face area, is basically shouting, hey, that's a face. Another part is tracking their eyes to see where they're looking. Your emotional centers are already reacting to their smile, while a different region is making a split-second judgment on attractiveness. And on top of all that, another area is frantically flipping through your mental Rolodex trying to pull up their name. All of that in an instant. It's just wild. And it's the exact same deal with memory. Thinking about something that happened to you, like what you had for breakfast this morning, that's called episodic memory. That fires up a whole different network than just recalling a fact, like knowing that Sacramento is the capital of California. That's semantic memory. Different kinds of memories literally call up different teams of neurons to do the job. And that quote just nails it, doesn't it? Memories, therefore, create a symphony of neural activity. That's the perfect way to put it. Our entire inner world, everything we think and feel, it really is a symphony. Different parts of the brain are like different sections of an orchestra, all playing their part to create one beautiful, cohesive piece of music. Okay, so if we've got all these different orchestra sections playing together, how are they all staying in sync? How do they communicate, right? They need some kind of infrastructure. And that's exactly what we're going to look at now, the brain's incredible information highway. Now, this is where things get really cool. There's a big difference between the physical wiring of the brain and how that wiring actually gets used. Think of it like this. Structural connectivity is the actual map of all the roads and highways in a country. These are the physical connections. But functional connectivity, that's the traffic. It's about which roads are being used together right now to get a package from one city to another, even if they're not directly connected by a single superhighway. It's about the patterns of use. And believe it or not, scientists can actually watch this brain traffic in real time. It's a really clever process using fMRI. What they do is they find a starting point, a seed location they know is active for a certain task. Then they just watch it. They record its rhythm while the person is just resting. At the same time, they're watching another location, and if they see that the second location's activity is pulsing in the exact same rhythm, rising and falling in perfect sync, then boom, they know those two areas are functionally connected. They're part of the same team. And doing this kind of mapping over and over has shown us that there are these common major networks that pretty much all of us have. You've got your visual network, obviously for seeing, the somatomotor network for movement and touch, but then you have things like the executive control network. That's like the CEO of your brain for high-level planning. And the salience network, which is like your brain's alarm system, flagging anything that might be important for survival. And then there's that last one, the default mode network. We'll get to that one in a minute. It's a weird one. So here's the key takeaway here. Your brain isn't just using one network at a time. It's constantly, and I mean constantly, switching and sharing information between them. Think about something as simple as picking up your coffee cup. Your visual network sees it, your attention network zooms in on it, and your motor network coordinates the movement to grab it. It's this beautiful, seamless, high-speed dance happening between all these systems, all for a single sip of coffee. All right, now for a really cool detour. We've been talking about what the brain does when it's focused on a task, but what happens when you're not doing anything at all, when you're just zoning out? You'd think the brain would power down, right? Well, the answer turned out to be one of the biggest surprises in neuroscience. This is the default mode network, or the DMN for short. And the crazy thing is, researchers basically stumbled upon it by accident. They were running experiments and they kept noticing this weird pattern. Whenever they gave someone a task to do, certain parts of the brain actually got quieter. And as soon as the person stopped the task and just rested, those same areas lit up like a Christmas tree. And that's what makes the DMN so mind-bogglingly weird. It works in the complete opposite way of almost every other network. When you're focusing on the outside world, it goes quiet. But the second you let your mind wander, it roars to life. It's your brain's default setting. And it turns out that default setting is incredibly busy. So what is it doing all that time? Well, this is your daydreaming network. It's what takes over when you're on a long drive and you suddenly realize you haven't been paying attention to the road for the last 5 minutes. It's busy thinking about your life, your past, your future plans. It's working through social problems, trying to understand other people. It's basically where your internal monologue lives. It's the storyteller in your head. So you might be wondering, okay, this is all amazing, but how in the world do we figure all this out? How do we go from just looking at a static brain to mapping these dynamic, living networks? Well, the story is really all about technology. It's about the tools we built. You can see here how our understanding got sharper and sharper as our tools got better. Back in the 1870s, we could only see the basic wiring. It was like having a roadmap, but with no idea where the cars were. Then, PET scans in the 70s let us see some blurry activity, like seeing the glow of city lights from a plane. fMRI in the 90s was a huge leap forward, like getting a clear satellite view. But the real game changer for this stuff was in 1995 with resting state fMRI. That's when we could finally see the traffic patterns, the actual flow of information. And all of this leads us to the really big takeaway, the single most important idea. Your brain isn't just a toolbox with a bunch of separate tools inside. It's a dynamic, interconnected superhighway of information that's constantly rerouting and adapting to create you. This shift in thinking, from parts to networks, has absolutely revolutionized neuroscience. So that leaves us with one last question to chew on. If the default mode network is running our inner world when we're not even paying attention, what other hidden networks might be quietly shaping our experiences, our moods, our decisions, without us ever knowing? Understanding all this isn't just an academic exercise. It's crucial for understanding everything from how we learn to how we can better treat mental health challenges. It's the frontier. Join us again next time for another aha moment.